There's a lot of good things that happen when we pause, isn't there? Like we don't say things we shouldn't say and those kind of things. But what I wanted to look at this evening is we're going to talk about, I have to go through this. I just don't have to go through it alone. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I know that there were times and have been times that I felt like I was kind of all alone. It was just me. And I felt like that I didn't know what to do. And so I would spend all this time, just sitting there, laying there, thinking. And about the time that I figured it out, then I figured out why it wouldn't work like that, right? And I bet I'm not the only one that's gone through that. But, sometimes it's like you're just finding yourself feeling alone, right? It's almost like, have you ever, or maybe you're going through something now, where it just seems like an extremely tough time, more so than usual, It's almost like feeling like the entire world is on your shoulders. Then if that's the way you feel, you're in the right place tonight. Isn't that a good feeling to know that you're not the only one? I can't tell you what a difference it made in my life one day when I woke up and I figured out I am not the only person going through this. Somebody else has gone through what you're going through right now. And you know what? They learned how to either handle it or they didn't handle it real well. But either way, you now get their experience. Isn't that amazing, the way that works? But you see, when I first got sober, I didn't know how to do anything that required me asking for help. Anybody else in here ever had a hard time asking for help? Yeah, me. A lot of me's out there. And it wasn't that I couldn't verbally say it. I just felt like if I asked for help, then that's admitting that I don't know what I'm doing. Well, guess what? I didn't know what I was doing. And that's how I ended up here, right? I got used to trying to figure out life on my own. And it never worked out. See, the problem is I was living in what they call self-directed life. And that's a life that's full of misery and pain and loneliness. I always felt alone. It didn't matter what was going on. I just always felt alone. Because you see, even though the world was around me and I was involved, I thought I had to carry everything on myself. Hey, can anybody relate to this? You're standing in the middle of a room, there's 100 people, and you still feel like you're totally by yourself. Right? We're the only ones that do that, by the way. That's part of who we are. That's part of the makeup. Is literally I can stand in the room with 1,000 people and still feel alone. And I've also always been able to do this too. Somehow I always hook up with the sickest person in the room. Right? And I've got, paperwork to show it, right? And an ex-wife. But at any rate, the point is that we are attracted when we're living in ourselves to something we're most like. And that ends up being other people that want to self-direct their life. Here's the only problem with that. When people want to self-direct in their own life, they want to self-direct your life. Because the truth is, it's easier for me to run your life than it is me, right? So I'd rather micromanage your life and tell you everything that you're doing wrong. I'm sure I'm not the only person that had somebody in their life like that. And by the way, I was that person that was in somebody else's life that was just like that, right? And that's the sad part. But you see, what all that is called is what? Self-centered living. And that within itself is kind of messed up, isn't it? Because you know what I love about that word self-centered? Is that I really was the center of my universe. And the problem with that one, my universe was messed up, right? Because I created it. You see what I'm saying? There was nobody else involved, and especially not God. I mean, that was definitely not going to happen, right? But the thing is that I was always busy trying to manage everything and everyone. And that became extremely exhausting. You see, people who do that kind of thing generally don't let the truth stand in the way of anything. And it becomes hard to start figuring out the lies So here's what you do, right? So what you do is to manage the lie, you start believing them. So then it becomes, and I hate this word, but this is what your truth is, right? Your truth is a bunch of junk that you decided to put together and decided to believe in it because it was easier to manage your life living behind that lie. Forget about the truth. But where does all this come from? Well, it stems from one thing, unhealthy pride. And that's literally where it all comes from. You see, what is the root cause of pride? What do you think it is? Talk to me. Ego. That's true. And what happens when we have a lot of ego? We what? We ease God right out of the situation, correct? So really what it is based in insecurity and a need to overcompensate for feelings of inadequacy. Now, before I go to the next part, I want you to take a second. Has that been you? Yeah. I understand. It's been me. It's also the characteristic of other people that want to control our lives, right? People who, as we call today, have narcissistic tendencies. So guess what? Guess what that makes you? That's right. I'll take ownership in some of that, right? And so one of the things that we have to realize is that what motivates a narcissist, the scariest thing that they have to live with is that they are so afraid that you're going to see who they are and that you will devaluate them. That's why they always have to be ahead of the game. And see, when people get to the point where they always have to be one up, well, sometimes truth gets in the way of that. And so it becomes so natural for someone just to one up that it becomes natural to lie. And what I have seen and what I have found out, and quite frankly, what I experienced in my early sobriety was that also makes you feel very lonely, very alone, very guarded. Because what if they actually find out the truth? What if they actually peek behind the wall? What if they do? Then they're going to see the real me. And those are the times that it wasn't a fight. It was always flight. If I thought you really were about to know who I was, I would start pushing you out of my life. You see, I wasn't getting my fix anymore. It wasn't worth it. So the only way that we can overcome pride is to start focusing and cultivating humility, self-awareness, and being willing to be of service to others. Why is that? Listen to that one again. Humility, self-awareness, and being willing to be of service to others. What's the one common denominator that is not in that anymore? Me. Thank you. Me. Self is now out of the game. So what does that tell me? It tells you that the only way that I can get through pride, the only way that I can cast down that pride is to be willing to remove self. Oh, wow. So see, that within itself tells me that I don't have to go through anything on my own. I choose to. Boy, that's a tough one, isn't it? Because what's one of the thoughts that we have? Well, God's done it to me again. Nobody has to live their life like I do. If anyone realized what I have to go through. Sounds familiar. Sounds very familiar to me. But left to our own thinking, well, let's just put it this way. My best thinking got me where? Got me here. Meaning it got me into every problem that I had. Even in recovery, let's make sure that we understand that the day that we walked into a recovery situation, we did not leave our old life on the other side of the door. We drug it right along with us. Why? Because we just knew that the only thing we needed to do was fix ourselves and just get rid of whatever our addiction was, right? Even if it's people, places, things, anything, right? It's the noun value. Whatever it may be. And what did we find out? I was the common denominator, not the problems. Right, it was me. And it was the problems that I brought. And that's how I had to live. Almost got me. But what does the word say about this? Well, let's take a look at Romans 12:3. And it says, for I say, through the grace given to me. What's the grace given to you? It's the fact that God loved you so much that he gave you another shot. What isn't grace? That I can just keep doing what I'm doing and it's all cool. Anyway, that's another subject for another day. We will get to that though. Grace given to me to everyone who is among you. I'm among you, you're among me. Not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think. Isn't that what we just talked about a second ago? When I start making myself bigger and better. But to think, oh my gosh, what's that word say right there? Come on. Soberly. To think soberly as God has dealt to each one a measure of faith. So here's two things in that. Guess what? You don't have a measure of faith if you're not thinking soberly. Oh, what are you saying there? I'm saying God's giving you a measure of faith, but you can't activate it because you are too busy in your stinking thinking. Because who are you thinking about? Always three people, right? Me, myself, and I, correct? And the only other people that are talking to me about anything else is who? That committee right up there, right? And it does not like me. Have you figured that out? The committee in your head does not like you. One side tells you how great you are, but you don't believe it. And the other side, you tend to believe on how horrible you are, right? So when we get pride, we get ourselves, we start building ourselves up. I'm somebody. Then I'm thinking more highly of myself than I am of you. Let me tell you something. One of the best things I ever learned was not yet. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, well, I never ended up under a bridge. Or I never sat there and sold everything and lost my car to the dope man. Right? Or I never got caught, had an affair. Or my gambling's okay. At least I'm not like those people who were over there begging for another dollar. My only comment is this, not yet. Because I guarantee you didn't think you were going to get to the bottom that you got to. Really, was that your 5-year plan? Hey, one day I'm going to learn to live day by day because I have to cop every day so I'm not dope sick. Yes, that's my 5-year plan. Right? See, here's the funny part. It's easier to live one day at a time when you're out there than it is here. Am I wrong on that? So then we get sober and our mind begins to change. And what do? Oh my God, what's going to happen tomorrow? Well, look how horrible I was yesterday. And we totally miss God. Oh, man. And it talks about grace here, right? And he says he renews his mercy and grace how often? Every day. No, it doesn't say every day. Let's get real specific. Every morning, right? He starts the day off, man, with a fresh slate, right? But it's a fresh slate. It's not, oh, yeah, that means I can go do whatever I want to because tomorrow it starts all over again. It's not Groundhog Day with him. You see, when I'm not turning things over to anyone else, when the only person that's thinking about me is me, that ain't sober thinking. Right? See, the best description of not doing that, the mindset of someone who is in total self-centeredness, which is also known as what? The flesh. The flesh. See, we do fight against this thing called the flesh. I've never done anything in my life or was motivated to do. Let me put it that way. I was never motivated to do anything that I did in my life that didn't directly affect my flesh. It makes me feel, right? That's flesh, right? Man, if I could just live like this, that's flesh. If I had all the money in the world, didn't have to go to work, I would never go to work again. Well, what you gonna do? Sit around, smoke dope, hang out with people you shouldn't be hanging out with, doing the do, right? But that's not where we're at. So after we have a sober minute, right? We come in the program, we start having this sober minute, and we start getting our mind halfway together, then we have to realize life is a little bit different than I thought it was. But let's take a look at Proverbs 6, 16 through 19. These 6 things the Lord hates. Wow, 6 of them. Oh no, there's actually 7, right? It says, a proud look, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood. Stop there for a second. A proud look is what? What is a proud look? Is pride. It's pride. So the first thing that God hates is pride. And then he turned around and he said, and what? What was the last thing? Can we go back to 16? Is it possible? If it's not, all right, these 6 things, now go to 17. Thank you. A proud, pride. And a lying tongue. What did we just talk about? What's the one thing you do not care about when you're out there and it's all about you? Lying. Oh, man. If I'm lying, I'm dying, then you might as well just fall on out, right? It's like, if I'm waking up, I'm lying. Back in the day, hands that shed innocent blood. The reason I want to look at that is, do you understand when you backbite, when you go against your brother, when you sit there and you gossip against your brother, the word says it's just like somebody who murders your brother? Think about that. All right, go ahead, Pastor. And then 18 says, a heart that devises wicked plans. Man, oh, have we ever met people in their life who, it was like they'd almost prefer to do the wrong thing. They had no desire to do the right thing. They just wanted to do whatever was easy, fun, right? And then it turns around and says, feet that are swift in the run into evil. Man, y'all want to go to the club? Right? Okay. Then 19 says, a false witness who speaks lies. But this is important because false witnesses do the next thing. And one who sows discord among brethren. Let me ask you a question for you guys that are here at Vision Warriors. What's one of the things that will keep you from being voted in? If you cause what? Chaos. Right. Animosity. Any of that stuff. Well, isn't that what that's saying? You see, that description is the perfect description of somebody that's living in their own self, their own flesh. And if you're still doing it, it's by your own choice now. See, you're away from what it used to be like. So here's what I would challenge you with. If you run into some of those things, some of those characteristics that we see in Proverbs 6, then you need to ask yourself, what's going on and where am I heading? You want to talk about one of the ways you can prevent relapse? Learn those verses. And you start falling into one, you need to look. If you fall into 2, you're in trouble. And I guarantee you by the time you hit 3, that telephone is the next place you go to. But as I said, after we've been sober for a minute, we start to build what? A network. And that's awesome. Because we have this network, all of a sudden, we may still go out and do the same stupid thing, but at least we talked to somebody about it first. Which means that we now can put ourselves in a place to be accountable. See, accountability is awesome. Why do you think it says iron sharpens iron? Man, it's tough some days. It's tough for me to get a call like I've gotten before and saying, hey, I may act out because of these things in my life, and have to say, man, is that what you really want to do? Well, let's look at this, this, and this. Oh, I didn't want to look at that. It's okay. It's okay. But our network is usually based with people who kind of came before us and passed something on to other people, right? Which ended up getting passed on to us. You see, we need to be real grateful for what other people went through who helped you get that seat, right? They paid for that seat. Yeah, sometimes we think we paid for our seat. We didn't. No. Somebody else cared enough without even knowing you, cared enough. Right? I think it's so incredible. Man, I was wanting to go to Vancouver this year. I'm not going to go. But I've been to World before. And one of the, we have AA has a World Convention every 5 years, right? There is nothing like having 100,000 people holding hands saying the Lord's Prayer. It's one of the most incredible things you'll ever see. But the biggest thing that you see is you start seeing the camaraderie of people who never even met each other, live all over the world, and yet they're there to help each other. See, that's a network. That's what you want to be a part of. But then we also have people in your network that are like your sponsor. My sponsor is absolutely very, very important in my life, right? But so are my sponsees, because believe me, they keep me sober. I'll tell you that however you want to, But you have mentors in your life. Or how about pastors like Pastor Bob in your life? People who are willing to sit there and listen to you, but not coddle you. They may say, I love you. But why didn't my phone ring when you were going through it? Or how about this one? Wow, sounds like you're going through a lot. Let's just take it and help you get out of it, and maybe do it by taking it to God. I didn't mean to go there. Now we're getting heavy. It takes heavy. Heavy is how we stay out of whatever we're into, right? What are you willing to do? What length are you willing to go? And hey, you know what? First thing that my sponsor told me is I am not responsible for your what? Recovery. And it passed on, and I tell my sponsees that, and they tell their sponsees that. Why? Because I'm not going to work harder than you do. That's that self-centered entitlement mentality of somehow you just ought to deserve it. You walked in a door, and so therefore you ought to get everything that goes along with it. No, man, you got to work. You got to work for this stuff. You got to believe in it. But the biggest thing is, how do you develop your plan? What do? Do you trust people? Do you have friends? And as you begin to talk to them, you start putting together a plan on how you're going to get through this. See, just talking it to death is nothing. What's your plan? Well, let me tell you how important that plan is. Because y'all know, anybody that knows me knows I am all about a plan. Proverbs 15:22 says it the best. It says, without counsel, plans go awry. But in the multitude of counselors, they are established. I want you to read this. Look, it says, but in the multitude of counselors. Y'all know what it didn't say? It didn't say use everybody and have a multitude of counselors. What it's trying to say is, let me ask you a question. Do you honestly believe that there's not one thing you've ever gone through that somebody else in the program hadn't gone through the same thing? I can tell you after 40 years, I run into it all the time. There's nothing that's happened to me that hadn't happened to somebody else. That's a multitude of counselors, but I'm not going to use everybody, right? And I'll explain that. You see, how do you use these counselors? What do? You listen to them, and you have an open mind. And even if it goes against what you think is the best thing for you, you're willing to put self down and listen to someone else. Matthew 18:16 says not to take on a problem without counsel. Listen to this, from 2 or 3 wise friends. Not 23, 2 or 3. So how do you not use counselors? Well, how about this one? You never keep going to people until you find somebody who will agree with you. You find that one person that agrees with you. And what do we call that? No, don't say it out loud. You finding somebody to co-sign your junk. Right? Right? And it's one. If you've had 12 people tell you the same thing, maybe you need to listen to 12. right? I remember when a friend of mine came to me and he said, man, I don't know what's going on with you, but you're not treating your family like you should treat them. And of course, you know exactly. I just sat there and went, what do you think I did? Well, really, that's none of your business. And then somebody else came to me and they said, man, you're not treating your wife like you probably should. Mm-hmm. Well, you don't understand our relationship. It had a third person come to me. A year later, my wife and I were separated. And it took a lot of wise counsel to get us back together. So I'm just saying, I'm slow, but I'm not that slow. If I have one person come to me, I'm going to listen. I got two, I'm now listening with questions. If I got three, I'm now listening with questions, and I'm now on my knees asking God to show me the truth. You see, nobody was trying to hurt me. They were trying to love me, but I couldn't understand that. Sometimes in my life, I'm just saying, in my life, when I got here, you guys are very fortunate because you get introduced to a spiritual life that most people don't. I wasn't necessarily introduced that way, right? And so you got to understand something. I love step 2. Because what's the one thing step 2 doesn't really mention? God, thank you. Step 3 does. So I'm like, dude, still don't got to put up with the God thing. So I started reaching and researching and looking at that step. And let's take a look at that step. Because I want to look at it. What does it say? 1, 2, 3, all of y'all. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could what? Restore us to sanity. Well, I'm just insane. I'm not responsible for what I did. Y'all have heard that one, right? You know. That's not what it says. You know what it says? It says sanity. You don't know what one of the definitions of sanity is? The ability to make a rational decision and follow through with it. Yeah. So all of a sudden, step 2 took a little bit different deal. Maybe, just maybe, I don't even have to put the God thing in this deal because I wasn't there yet. But I got to find somebody who can give me good, clear direction. And I got to just kind of figure out I'm going to follow it. And I can tell you right now, I promise you this, there are times that I still just feel like I can't hear God on something. And there are 3 people I go to. That's it. And not very often. But one of them is my sponsor. And I've made it very clear with her, if you tell me, whatever you tell me in this situation, this is a step 2. I don't have the ability to make a rational decision. You're going to have to make it for me. And she knows me well enough, and she's out of the box to be able to say, this is what I would do. And normally I go, okay, but I will tell you this much. I always get the last word in, always. And you know what it is. Yes, ma'am. But here's the thing. When I listen and I follow clear-cut direction that I'm given, all of a sudden I start getting through it and I begin to hear God again. See, I always love when people say, I don't hear from God. Well, at least you're willing. That's the first part of it. But the second part is you just don't know how to dial him in. Promise you that. He's talking to you all the time. Right, Pastor? All the time. He never stops. Right? But you see, eventually what happened was I found Papa God. Yeah. I couldn't deal with God as in a lot of ways, but I found Papa God. And it began to make a difference in my life. You see, I did exactly what the book said. I hired a new manager. I fired the old one and hired a new one. This is no joke. This is the honest truth. So years ago, I was going through a lot, and I just was not a very wasn't happy. I wasn't a lot of things, right? And I was having issues with everybody in my life. So I made an executive decision. I fired myself, brought a box in, packed my stuff up. I had to go. So I fired myself from my own company. And I stayed away for 30 days. And guess what? By the time I got back and decided to hire myself back, I was in a much better place. Because you see, I began to realize a few things. I wasn't the center of that universe. I was just a part. And really, if I honestly was going to turn all this over, then I had to make a decision to be willing for God to move on my behalf, even when I didn't think it was necessarily what I had planned on doing. And I've seen him do that time and time again. But all of a sudden, this change took place in my life when I decided to put God in place. I was in treatment. I'll never forget it. I was in treatment. I was kneeling on the side of the bed. And in case y'all didn't know, I went to treatment with almost 7 years sobriety. I had no humility. That day I had total humility, and I said, God, if you are real, if you are really real, then I give you my life, and something's got to change. And I'm telling you something, within days, my life started to change. The desires I had, I didn't have anymore. The way that I handled things, I didn't handle it anymore. And this was the most incredible part. I wanted to get so honest with myself that I didn't care what people saw, right? There's a part in the big book, right? I think it's page 73, second paragraph. And what it basically says is it says that we're like actors who have a certain stage presence, that we want everybody to only see that stage presence, even though we know that that's not who we are. And all of a sudden, I wanted people to see, not me, God through me. Which meant I had to become more and more transparent. And this was the best part. See, God is so incredible. Guess who showed up at the treatment center? My ex-wife. And I'd just done a fourth and a fifth step. I took it with me, and I met her, and we went down to the dock. And I asked for forgiveness for everything I had done in our marriage. But this was the difference. I wouldn't mind asking for forgiveness, but I'd be waiting for you to own up on your part, so I could then shame you and make you think that yours was worse than me. I didn't want to hear anything of that. I just wanted to get it off my chest. I just wanted to get it out of my heart. I just wanted to get it out of who I was and make amends. See, that's the kind of thing we do when we know that God is real in our life, right? So when I found myself starting to trust Papa God, I started going, you know what, God, there's got to be more to this. Really, who are you? And I ran across a verse that I use a lot, Jeremiah 29:11. And I love what it says. It says, for I knew the thoughts that I think towards you. Thank you, Papa, for what you think towards me, says the Lord. Thoughts of peace and not evil, to give you a future and a hope. And some versions actually say that he has a plan for you. And it says not to do you harm. Right? I love this version. But it's not to do you harm. It's to do you good. Matter of fact, his desire and his heart is to prosper you. Right? We're not just talking about financially. We're talking in every area of your life. That became a game changer for me. When I realized that God really did have good thoughts for me and not bad thoughts. He had a plan for me and not a bad plan. And he actually wants me to do good, and he wants you to do good. He does not have a plan to kick you in the teeth. Anybody ever felt like they got kicked in the teeth by God? Did you? No. Just felt that way, didn't it? Because why? Because you were taught to think like that. That's why. But God will show up in so many different ways. It's amazing. But you know what is the most common way? God with skin on him. right? Other people that just seem to come up at the right time and say the right thing, right when you need to hear it. Just the right thing at just the right moment. What a big deal that is. And then all of a sudden I started to learn how to stay connected through prayer and meditation. And y'all know what the difference is between prayer and meditation? Oh my gosh, this is the honest truth. I literally think, Lord, you must really love us more than we realize, because we will overtalk even God himself. Why don't we try this one sometimes? Shut up. Listen. That's meditation. Ain't sitting there, I tried that. I messed the whole yoga class up. It was awesome. This was years ago, because they were all the ding, and I was like, praise God. They're like, where's that coming from? It's causing a disruption in our energy. And I was like, you know what? Let me even disrupt it more. Bye-bye. Roll up my mat. Right? God will come to you in so many different ways. And he loves you. But here's the other thing. I had to start learning how to talk to him. You know how you talk to him? You ready? Here it goes. I'm like, here you go, right? Hey, Papa God, how you doing? And he'll tell you. Man, what I wake up to and what I used to wake up to are so different. What I wake up to today is he's already talking to me. His Spirit's already talking to me. I get revelation. I get messages. He'll preach the whole sermon to me sometimes. In that twilight zone, that twilight moment, that moment when one day I said, why do you only do it then? He said, because that's when I have your full attention. Oh, wow. But you see, we learn to do that. And I started saying, Lord, it's like everywhere I go, there you are. Even when I do stupid things that I didn't want you to see, there you still are. And I ran across this verse, Deuteronomy 31:6. It says it all. Be strong and of good courage. How can you be strong and good courage and you're in the middle of something? Because you believe it's already been taken care of for you, right? Do not fear, nor be afraid. Well, that takes care of a lot of things right there. For the Lord your God, is he your God? That's what you got to ask. For the Lord your God, he is the one who goes with you, and he will what? He will never leave you. You ain't going to make him leave. I promise you that. You may feel distance from him, but that's because you put sin back in there. He's there. You just don't feel him. And you see, when we begin to look at that, doesn't that say it all right there? He will never leave you or forsake you. Never, 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 never. You've never going to experience that from anyone else in your life. You see, a lot of our issues, honestly, come from our past. Abandonment, being lied to by our parents, or maybe not them, but other people in authority. See, eventually we have to do this one thing. We have to begin to take a risk and do what I call a mental bypass. Got to get the brain out of it. And then I get to the point I just trust God. You see, we either choose life or we choose death. And how do we choose life? We choose it through faith. Thank you guys for tonight. I appreciate you for listening to me. Let's go ahead and close it the way we normally do with the Lord's Prayer. Who's the one that will always stand by us every time we go through something? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who have trespassed against us. And lead us not in temptation, deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever.